Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of After Class. I wanted to do this episode today because I personally find so much value in doing a reset this time of year. I feel that it really helps me head into a new year feeling refreshed and ready to go. So I know a lot of people like to do spring cleaning, but to me, it just makes so much sense to do something like this at the end of the year so you can really enjoy the benefits of it heading into a brand new year. So today's episode is going to be quick and practical. So let's get into it. One of the first things that I like to do to reset at the end of the year is to clean out my dance bag. There is so much stuff that can accumulate in our bags over the weeks and months that we're taking class, things like wrappers from protein bars, bobby pins in every single pocket, and just the most random stuff. So I like to take a few minutes at the end of the year to take everything out of my dance bag. So I clear out all the pockets, put everything in a pile on the floor, and then wash the bag. That is a very important first step. Our bags can get really gross and really stinky sitting on studio floors and being looped over our sweaty arms after class. So I wash the bag. If it's a bag that can't be put in the washing machine, you can also wipe it down. But if it can be machine washed, you can just put it on a delicate cycle and then lay it flat to dry. So wash the bag, and then I take everything that I put in a pile that was in the bag, and I like to organize things into smaller pouches. So I have a pouch that's for hair items like bobby pins, elastics, things like that, and toiletries. And then I also have another pouch that's for foot care items. So things like toe pads, my needle and thread for sewing my point shoes, my toe spacers, all that stuff. And so if you can kind of group your items together, that way you don't have as much miscellaneous stuff floating around your bag, I find that that's a really helpful way to organize things. And then I like to also go through as I'm grouping things into pouches and take out the things that I'm not actively using. It's really easy for our bags to get very, very heavy and loaded down with things that we don't actually need on a class-to-class basis. And so I like to go through at the end of the year and just ask myself, did I really need to have this in my bag? If I don't, take it out. It'll help lighten the load on your shoulders or your back. And then once the bag is washed and ready to go, I put everything back in a way that's more organized. And then I like to add a scent satchel into the bag. So this will really help, especially if you put your ballet shoes and your point shoes in your bag after class. It really helps to have like a lavender scent satchel or eucalyptus, some kind of a fresh scent that'll help your bag stay feeling fresh and clean. So the next thing I like to do at the end of the year is to go through all of my dancewear. So I like to do this in kind of a systematized way and make different piles. So as I'm going through things and holding them up, trying them on, I set them into piles based on things that I know for sure I want to keep. So things that I love, I set aside. Then I set aside another pile for things that I really love but don't wear as much as I like to. So we'll come back to that pile, but I do set those items aside. And then I make a third pile for the things that I know that I'm not going to keep. So these are items that either are damaged and need to be recycled. So there are a few different ways that you can recycle clothes. The one I recommend is a program called Trashy, where you can get a bag sent to you and you can put in any garments that are damaged, and instead of them going to the landfill, they'll get recycled. And then for the items that are in great condition but that you just don't personally wear, I go ahead and I list those items on tutulist.com. So this is a great way to kind of recoup some of the money for things that you have purchased but don't wear, either because you just don't like the way it looks on you or maybe they don't fit you anymore. So I love Tutulist. I currently have a bunch of stuff listed on there right now. And it's a great way to, like I said, get some of that money back that you've spent on dancewear that's in great condition, but you just don't wear it that much. And I think going through your dancewear is such an important thing to do at the end of the year, because for me, I think of it as I only want to bring the things into the new year that I feel great in. So a perfect example of this for me is as I was going through my dancewear, there's this one purple leotard that I absolutely love, but it's just too small for me. And I keep trying to squeeze myself into it, and every time I do, it kind of just makes me feel a little bit bad about myself, a little bit negative about my body, but I just keep putting it on because it's there and it's in my closet and I love it and I want to wear it. But this last time I put it on for class, I just had this realization of, why do I keep on trying to squeeze into something that makes me feel less than my best. Like I knew I just needed to get rid of it, needed to stop seeing it. So as much as it pains me, I put it up on to-do list. If you have items like that, I heard them described one time as bully pieces, and they're the pieces in our wardrobe that when we put them on, make us kind of feel bad about ourselves. So don't allow the items in your ballet wardrobe to bully you and make you feel less than your best. They might be things that are really pretty and that you love, or maybe you have sentimental attachment to, but it's really important that we go to class feeling our best. Ballet is already a very vulnerable space to be in with all the mirrors and being in leotards and tights. So use this opportunity to clear out the items that you feel like you should fit in or you should wear, but just don't make you feel great when you have them on. So after you've gone through sorting all of your clothes and putting them into piles of what you're going to keep, what you're going to get rid of, you should be left with only items that you feel great in. And one of the things I like to do, because when I go through this process, there's always things that I feel great in, but for whatever reason, I just don't wear that much. They fit, they're beautiful, I love them. When I put them on, I feel confident, but for some reason, I just don't reach for them as much as other things. So for these items, I like to take a few minutes and create outfits. So if it's a leotard, I take a couple minutes, go through my skirts, my leg warmers, and find things to pair it with that I like and feel good in. And then I set those outfits aside to wear for the rest of the year because I want to see if I'll actually start wearing them if I've done the work of creating an outfit using them. And then this helps me because if by the end of January, I still haven't worn those items, even after I've done the work of setting them aside, making an outfit using them, I know that as much as I might love them, it's probably better to just get rid of them. I also find that for me, getting rid of things is easier when I think about giving those items an opportunity to be used and enjoyed and loved by someone else. I think sometimes we want to hold on to things because they're pretty or they have sentimental value and we just don't want to see them go. And I totally get that. I'm someone who can definitely form an attachment to clothing, but it's easier for me to list those things on to-do list or give them to a friend when I think about somebody else really enjoying them and using them. So maybe that'll help you too. Okay, let's be real. Not all dancewear is created equal, but Jewel dancewear, they get it. Their meshy tights are durable, come in unique colors like purple and blue, and the back seam makes your legs look amazing. Seriously, my legs have never felt more snatched. And their leotards? They're like the little black dress of the ballet world. Flattering and chic, the one you reach for over and over because you know you look good in it. But what I love most is that Jewel sizing is truly adult ballet body friendly. Their pieces embrace and support your curves so you feel as good as you look. And because you're part of this community, Jewel is giving you 15% off your order with the code AFTERCLASS15. That's AFTERCLASS15 at jeweldancewear.com because every dancer deserves to feel confident in class. Special thank you to Jewel Dancewear for sponsoring this episode. The next thing I always do at the end of the year is review my subscriptions. It's really easy throughout the year to accumulate memberships to multiple platforms. So you can find yourself in December with 4 different ballet subscriptions, memberships to different strength training or cross-training platforms, all kinds of things. And those things can really start to eat away at your monthly budget for ballet. So rather than having more to spend on things like in-person classes or private lessons, you can easily end up spending hundreds of dollars per month on subscriptions that you may not even be using. I personally recommend choosing one ballet platform subscription and one strength training platform. As you're deciding which platforms you want to commit to, it's also really important to be honest with yourself about which ones align with your goals for 2020. So take some time to go through the libraries that you're signed up for, read through the class descriptions, look at the programs, and make sure that you're picking the platforms that are actually going to help you achieve your goals in 2026. Once you've narrowed it down, go ahead and cancel those subscriptions. Honestly, it is so freeing to cancel something that you're not using and realizing that you're going to get all that money back. That's money that can go to in-person classes, private lessons, dancewear, point shoes, all the other things that you need to fund your ballet training. And if you're worried about not having enough variety by only committing to 1 or 2 platforms, remember how much free content there is on YouTube. I find that YouTube is a perfect supplement when I'm wanting to mix up my routine. There's so many free ballet classes, strength training workouts, stretch videos, all of those types of things. So don't worry about not having enough options, because if you get bored, you can always supplement with YouTube videos. The next thing I like to do as part of my year-end reset is retire my current ballet journal and get a new one. So depending on how you like to use your journal, you can go one of two ways. You can either get a plain lined journal and divide it into sections. This is what I did this past year. I just had a plain journal and I divided it into 3 sections. One for compliments and corrections, so anything that the teacher told me during class or any feedback I wanted to remember, I would put in that section. Then another section for choreography and combinations. So if there was a combination in class that I really liked and wanted to be able to practice, I had a section where I could write that down. And then the third section is just a section for reflection and more for like journal entry type of writing. So times where I had a class that brought up some like thoughts or emotions that I wanted to journal and process through, I had a section for that too. Another option is the Cozy Dancer Journal, which I talked about on the holiday gift guide episode. And this is a really beautiful hardcover journal that actually has a lot of prompts and questions and guided reflection, as well as dedicated space to record things like your feedback in class. So this is a great option if you're looking for a journal that's a little bit more structured. The next thing I like to do at the end of the year is to calendar my commitments. So this for me is a really, really important step to make sure that I'm actually going to make time for my training and have the space and time to work on my goals. So I sit down at my computer, I use my Gmail, Google Calendar, and I just identify the blocks of time that I consistently have from week to week. After I've blocked off those open windows on my calendar, I go through and I look at all the different websites for my local studios and I pull their schedules to see what classes they're offering. Then I cross-reference what's on their schedule with the times I have available and slot classes in where they match up with my free time. Once I've picked those classes, then I just go ahead and go into my calendar and pop them in the specific times that they're being offered, so I know that those are locked in and committed. For me, I personally start with calendaring studio or in-person classes because those are my priority for my training. I like to make sure that I'm taking at minimum 2 studio classes a week so that I'm getting that time to really dance in a bigger and more full way. I find that at home, my ballet classes tend to be much more condensed. I can't do as much jumping just because of my floor and not having enough space to do things like pirouette combinations, grand allegro. So it's really important to me personally to prioritize at least 2 studio classes a week so that I can really dance in a bigger space, and also so that I can be meeting people and making friends. After I've scheduled my in-person classes at local studios, then I go through and I slot in things like Zoom classes. So I personally take 2 Zoom classes a week right now for strength and mobility. And so I put those classes in my calendar so that those are blocked off commitments. And lastly, with the remaining free time I have, I go in and schedule my classes and workouts for my on-demand platforms. Because these classes aren't live, they're obviously the most flexible to plug into my schedule, but I do still find that it's important to calendar them. If you listen to the episode a few weeks ago where Katie and I talked about developing a training plan, she talked about how she actually takes the exact link to the workout that she's going to do, and she puts that in the calendar so that when she sees, a 30-minute block for strength training, all she has to do is open that item on her calendar and the link is already there. So I thought that that was a fantastic idea and something that I'm actually going to be implementing this year. Once you've taken the time to calendar your in-person classes, your Zoom classes and workouts, and your on-demand platforms, you should have a really nice set schedule. And this, for me at least, is so important to making sure that I'm actually going to maintain my commitments. If I don't have these things on the calendar, I find that I am much less likely to actually do them. So I think this is such an important step in resetting for the new year. The next thing I like to do at the end of the year is take a minute to take some inventory and see what things you need to replace. So I know for me, a lot of times my ballet slippers have holes in them. I might have a bunch of dead point shoes and need to order more. Your tights might have runs or holes or tears. So this is a great time to order some new, fresh items for the new year. A lot of websites like Discount Dance Supplies, dancesupplies.com, they do a lot of sales in December. And so if you're needing to get a fresh pair of slippers, restock on some point shoes, get a few extra pairs of tights. This is a great time to do that. The next thing I like to do in December is set my goals for the coming year and specifically for the first quarter. It is really important to have bigger overarching goals that are going to carry us through the year, but it tends to be a little bit more realistic to set goals on a smaller time frame. So I find that quarterly is great because that's the first 3 months of the year, and those are the things that you can get really specific and measurable with. So if you have specific goals surrounding the amount of time you want to spend strength training each week or the number of classes you want to get to, this is a really good time to actually sit down and write those things out. I find, and I think this is backed by research, that actually writing our goals down makes them much more likely to achieve them. And so even though it does take a little bit of extra time, it's definitely worth it to put pen to paper or type it out on your phone so that you can look back on those goals throughout the first quarter and have the accountability of seeing them written down and knowing that you want to hold yourself to them. And the last thing that I do to reset for a new year is make time to rest guilt-free. So especially those last 2 weeks of the year when there's a lot of other things going on in our lives, parties, family gatherings, work parties, all the things, I think it's really, really important to just be realistic and allow yourself to rest with no guilt. I find that when I allow myself to really lean into resting rather than fighting it or having this feeling in the back of my mind like I shouldn't be doing it and I should be working out and I should be going to class, the time spent resting is actually much less restful. So my encouragement to you and to myself is to rest the last couple weeks with zero guilt and really just allow yourself to lean into it and enjoy your rest, because that's what's going to set you up to enter 2026 feeling recharged and ready to conquer the year. I hope that this episode was helpful for you, and as the year winds down, using some of these suggestions can help you head into 2026 feeling refreshed, reset, and ready to achieve your goals. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next week after class. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can join the After Class Core to Ballet for just $3 a month through the listener support feature. It really helps keep the podcast going, and as a member, you'll even get a special shout out in future episodes. All the links mentioned in this episode, including the link to join the core, are included in the show notes. See you next week after class. Podcast produced by Mission Bridge Media.